Amsterdam is a city of islands and bridges, with roughly 90 islands and around 1,500 bridges created by its extensive canal network. The bridges vary in style, from historic and ornate to modern feats of engineering, connecting the city's landmasses and facilitating navigation through the canals. Amsterdam's islands were created through two main methods: historical construction and modern land reclamation. Historically, the 17th century Western Islands were built by stabilizing peat with a bulwark, creating artificial islands for harbour expansion and trade. More recently, new artificial islands like those in the Iceberg archipelago were created using the pancake method, which involves layering and hardening sand sprayed through porous screens to build up land from the water.
My name is Tina. I'm lived in North, so I've also been on a boat today. I came over with one of those ferries. Lived here 17 years. My husband is American. I'm originally from Norway. And we have a kid born here in the city. And she's in middle school now. And she goes to a school at MuseumHaven, for those of you that were there yesterday. I want to start by crossing the road here, and then later we're going to just look on the other side of the museum. We were just with the bus on modern artificial island. This one is from the 17th century. This one's called Kattenburg. But we are where you have three islands after each other. In the middle we have Wittenberg and then Osterberg. And this whole place was nothing but harbor.
Oh, wow. Where did all the film come from? Where did all the filter come from?
From here. So the ground is peat and morass and sand, and you could dig it up. Like, you didn't need to transport from far away. It's because it's already this whole land, you know, it wasn't a clear distinction between dry and wet. Amsterdam is not very old, it's 750 years. There were no Romans here. It was all too wet for them. But it means that it doesn't take that much to build land. The problem, we already heard in the boat, is water being too low. So for ships coming in here, sometimes they had to wait really long before they got enough water. But they also built what they call ship camels, wooden constructions, where one would drag the ship over on a wooden construction. They have a model of that in the museum. Here also lived people. It lived people who, sail makers, ship woodworkers. It lived people who made pulleys. That was like one profession. All these, of course, would be members of guilds. It was very regulated. That, for example, meant that further into the city you have the Jewish neighborhood, but Jewish people were not allowed to be a member of a guild. So that it was quite limited what work were allowed to do. And if you were not a member of a guild, of course, you could not enter any of these professions. One profession was to sell second-hand ship material. And then, of course, you had also bakers and that kind of things that one would need. This side is like the seaman's house. One was established in the 19th century to have a little bit of control over the sailors. A home away from home. There they could stay, and one could make sure they didn't drink too much. Or
No, that never happened.
it still exists, but not here anymore. But this particular building, sorry, I don't know what it was, but you can see really on it that it's in this historic style. But all the buildings here dealt with boating up till modern times. 17th century church built as Protestant church. When you saw the city yesterday, you heard about the ring of canals. Of course, the idea was to bring it all around the medieval city, like in perfect symmetry. And it had 4 churches, and this would have been the eastern one. What happened was that when they came to Amsterdam, the river, or sea, we will hear about that in the museum, made that the money wasn't there anymore for building canals and rich houses. So this whole area never was built in the planned way. So here you see not anymore that very strict pattern of the ring of canals. What happened in the 18th century was that instead of having warehouses all the way around in the city and warehouses for taxation, one built a huge row here on the opposite side here of warehouses and dock. And here you could very easily taxate everything coming in and everything going out. Then quite soon one found out that's too much, and one made new rules. Taxation would only happen when goods entered the market. So yeah, these questions are not new. And then you see a windmill at the end. That's the Hoyer. It's the tallest wooden windmill in Netherlands, and it's the only one of the windmills way on the end. Oh, wait.
Down there.
Yeah. That is where the city would have ended in the 17th century. On the city walls, you had bastions for protection, but those were also great for building windmills, because that's where the wind was. So this was for grain, and it went out of use. But in the Second World War, when there was little electricity, they took it in use again. So, in the 18th century, all boats coming from outside would have come in here to enter this entrepot dock. In earlier times, it would be all over. And from here to where you see the church towers, and even beyond there, would have been a forest of masts. That's what you call it.
What was that?
Not until 1870, one had the technology to dig canal through the sand dunes. So nowadays, the boats will come from west, directly from the Atlantic Sea and into Amsterdam. So the opposite direction that you your boat, that's how you enter the harbor these days. And Amsterdam still have a very active harbor, huge on petroleum. Also biggest in the world for cacao. Here. Which boat do you think that is?
The newest one?
The newest boat. Here.
I think it would be.
Yeah, that's true. We have that. We have it in the distance.
I think it would be
That
this
is
one.
true. Yeah. The sailboat there. It's
Recreation.
built in the late 80s, early 90s. But it's a copy of a VOC ship that is from the mid 18th century. It was not a very lucky boat. It tried to go to Indonesia, First they got illness on board, a lot of people died. Then they came to the English Canal outside of Hastings, they went down. And it's still lying there, and then the copy is made of it. So it's a VOC ship. What does that mean? It's this company that had the right to do all the trading with Indonesia and the ruling of Indonesia using military force, even though it was a private company owned by stockholders, the first in the world that was owned by stockholders. They would enslave, they would fool people to have to cross the world to move to Suriname in South America. Sometimes they would completely burn down cities. Their strategies were not always great. So you see the flags. The museum have decided not anymore to do the VOC flags, and instead have artists create flags meaningful for our time. And these are flowers. The king protea is the big one, and this chrysanthemum, it's a lily, and marigold, all flowers that have meaning in relation to both sorrow and hope. Sealed off, so everything was completely safe there. It meant that it wasn't kind of part of the city, and people felt it was really, really far away, so it was never taken into use when they didn't need them anymore, so they were just standing empty. And in the 80s, there were a lot of squatters in Amsterdam, and they were thinking, maybe you could move here, and people said, oh no, that's too way out, we don't want it. So then they made luxury homes out of it instead. Also social housing, actually. So it's and careful here. Just gonna walk to the first boat here. So you see the house that you already noticed. It's the Children's Museum. It's also a tunnel, entrance to a tunnel. If you were to drive to the northern side. So a huge tunnel. Once they closed it for a day and they let bikers go through it, would have been great. But it's too dangerous, too steep. On the roof, it's a public park. It's actually brand new. The green, all that is new.
Wow.
And it's free for anyone to enter. The architect is Renzo Piano. He's the same who built Pompidou in Paris. But those are on the opposite side of his career. That's very strict, very like straight and bombastic. This is a much softer building. And it has aged. It's now not new. It's 25 years or something. It's aged beautifully with that green. This is not in itself old harbor. But this would have been originally a big, what do you call that? The protections of a harbor with ship wharf on the inside for the army.
Break wall.
Yeah.
Break wall.
Harbor works.
And you had the ship wharfs here all up till the central station was built. Then train tracks closed off the whole harbor. And of course, in the 20th century, one closed off that water that comes down on the inside of Holland, of North Holland, put the dike in, and now this doesn't smell like a seaside city. There's
No, it
no
doesn't.
more seawater in Amsterdam. We're far from seawater. That was closed off to protect, but also to be able to reclaim agricultural land and also land for city east of the city.
So this water's not brackish at all?
No, but it is a problem these days. It comes more and more salt water in, so that's something we have to deal with. You don't want that because we have good agricultural soil around. Okay, here we have very old boats, but modern boats. Lives people on most of them. Many of them have restored them themselves. These all are museum quality boats. Promenade, that's a place close to Sanseschans. You know that famous area with windmills?
Yeah.
That is like industry before Industrial Revolution. It was hundreds and hundreds of windmills up there. This boat came with between Promenade and here in Sandrikade with linoleum. Do you say that like that in English? That's still made up there. We still have a factory for it. The only one I think in the world that makes it now. And cork and also linseed oil. So that was its job, was to transport these things. The next one was also for a floor factory in Rotterdam, outside Rotterdam. And then since they went in these set routes, also people could use them like a ferry. You see some of these have sails. Some have sails that you can easily take down, so you can go under bridges. We won't walk further down, but at the very end you have a huge barge boat, but doesn't have an engine. So then in modern times now it will be pushed, but back then they will pull it. Yeah, there is a picture of women pulling it. It's a huge structure. In one of these boats, people hide in the Second World War.
Oh yeah.
So what are these black things?
This is a good question. This is extremely technical language.
So you translate for us. This is Norwegian.
Sewing machine.
So it is to make the steel sheets for building the boats. I think.
Sunshine.
So I think we should just head back because now the museum is open.
Sure.
But it's from the late 19th century, so they still built it as if it was from wood. It has this rounded shape.
Wow.
You have seen many of those, of course, on your travels. People living on the working boats. I once met the woman who grew up on one, and when she was 7, she had to start school, was sent to Amsterdam, similar to be sent to an orphanage. And can you imagine, like, you have never been further away your parents than, I don't know, like
20 feet.
yeah, 20 feet top, probably less, because they didn't necessarily know how to swim. It was so awful. But she married a shipper as well. But when their kids reached school age, she bought a house.